Alright YouTube, I'm back. I'm doing a video so quickly after my last video because of something that happened Easter Sunday. And it just flared up my hatred of the fact that people who don't know anything about guns or know very little about guns and gun history and that sort of thing come up with opinions on how we should regulate guns. And this came by the fact that on Easter Sunday we were sitting around watching TV, the news came on, and the story of a murder came on. So my sister-in-law said to the general nobody, to everybody that was sitting there, I believe semi-automatic weapons should be banned. Now, there's so much wrong with that statement that I couldn't even form a coherent argument immediately. But it brought up the fact that, these people are out there. So, first off, I did cover in a previous video 5 weapons that prove that the Founding Fathers knew that it was possible to fire multiple shots without reloading. It's called the Second Amendment only allows muskets and 3 exclamation marks or something like that. But it was in support of modern semi-automatic weapons, and pretty specifically the modern sporting rifles that people are attacking so much, because they were all rifle-based things, because pistols just weren't that viable back then. It was a lot harder to make it small. So my first thing, because her justification for the no semi-automatics was it would give people more time to think about their actions. So my thing is, I, like many people, have been angry enough that I wanted to kill somebody. Being that I was a Marine for 5 years, a lot of the times I had a gun next to me that I could have very easily just drawn and shot them. But you know what kept me from doing it? It wasn't the time it would take me. It was my own self-control and my ability to say, no, that's wrong, I shouldn't do that. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I mean, unless it takes a couple of days to load this thing, it's not going to deter somebody from shooting somebody else. Secondly, if you keep a weapon loaded, it doesn't matter if it's 1 shot or 100. It's very easy to just pull a hammer back and kill somebody, or shoot somebody, or enact your rage upon them. So that just, your point fails right there. Thirdly, what do you consider semi-automatic? Modern revolvers are semi-automatic. Every time you pull the trigger, the cylinder turns, a new round is brought into battery with the barrel. Technically they're all in their own chambers, but it's brought into battery with the barrel and it's fired. That's semi-automatic. Single action army pistols, the old Colts that you see in cowboy movies, they're not semi-automatic, they're single action, because you have to cock the hammer every time. But then again, you have something you can keep loaded. It doesn't take too long to reload, that you can just cock the hammer and shoot somebody. Pump action shotguns, not semi-automatic, because every time you fire you have to pump and fire again. Lever action rifles, same thing. Every time you fire you have to work a lever. Now, lever action rifles, depending on the caliber, can hold 15 or 20 shots. And depending on the style, can be loaded very easily by moving a spring, rotating the tubular magazine, and dropping more bullets in. So if you had the proper speed loader, and you felt like carrying around something that was freaking huge, you could speed load those 15 or 20 rounds at a time. So you can't just blanket statement say all semi-automatic weapons, especially if your reasoning for it is to give people more time to think about their actions. Because then you're talking about legislation that says you can't have semi-automatics, and you can't keep your guns loaded, and you can't have lever action weapons, and you can't have pump action weapons. So you're not just talking about semi-automatics, you're talking about a very broad, several categories of weapons. And apparently I've got a lot of these people in my life because I recently posted a photo on Facebook, and it said, the same people who said this, marriage equality is a human right and therefore not subject to government regulation and infringement, just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can ban or restrict certain marriages. It has a picture of the pink and red equals sign. And then beside it says, they said just a few weeks earlier, self-defense is a human right. Even though it is guaranteed under the Constitution, we will regulate, confiscate, infringe, and ban the out of it because we just don't like certain guns. And it's the same equal sign, except the pink equal sign was replaced by handguns. Now, the idea behind it is self-defense being a human right and guns being the best tool for self-defense. They shouldn't ban or regulate firearms. Well, I've got a cousin, she came in and decided to comment that self-defense isn't mutually exclusive to firearms. And this is the type of thing that kind of makes me think that they're purposefully stubborn. That the anti-gun crowd just purposefully does not want to admit certain things. Now, she claims to be anti-ignorance, and that my image that I posted was misleading because it implies that only guns can be used in self-defense. But you know, it's as everybody says, when the bad guy has a gun and he's coming after you, your hands, a knife, a baseball bat are not applicable self-defense tools. The best thing to defend yourself with in that situation is a gun. But again, she's choosing not to acknowledge that fact and being stubborn in accepting it. And these people are just kind of everywhere. It just amazes me that people form these opinions and make these statements when they don't know what they're talking about. I don't know quantum mechanics and physics. I don't go and try and tell Stephen Hawking how to do his job. I don't go to a nuclear power plant and try and tell them how to work the fusion, or the fission, rather. I don't go to NASA and try and tell them, you know, how best to launch the space shuttles. Actually, that's a bad example because NASA's pretty much shut down now, but I don't go to the SpaceX program and tell them how to best launch their rockets. I don't know those things. I suck at sports. I'm going to say that right now. I don't go and tell the NFL, NBA, MLB how they should best play their game, what the best strategy is. So, I don't think anybody who knows nothing about guns or knows very little about guns should be telling me how I get to exercise my right to personal protection, to guarding this country. So, it's just stupid. But that's my mini rant, and this is just one man's thoughts.